What is up, dudes? I got two cameras going, and I'm trying to get fancy, but I'm not. I don't know which one to look at. This is going to be a problem. How do the famous podcasters and YouTubers do it with multiple camera angles? Which one do they look at? Which one do they know to look at? And at which point in time do they know to look at it at? Whoa. Well, I guess I'll look at this one because it's on the left, and I feel like the left is my good side. So welcome, everybody, to the Robby Row Show baseball podcast. This podcast is being recorded on December 31st, meaning it is the last day of 2021. So, with that being said, what better opportunity to do a complete 2021 recap from my entire life? I don't know if this interests you one bit, but I have been getting a lot of questions pertaining to not so much I don't want to say personal life, because I feel like that's a totally different dynamic, but just my journey and my career and everything unfolding all together. And obviously the correlation between getting a job in affiliated ball and the lessons learned throughout the course of obviously this past year and so on and so forth. So I feel like this is what better opportunity than in a recap of the entire year to kind of elaborate on all that stuff. So I have written down on this piece of paper, well, I guess it's 2 pages, every month of 2021, and just kind of going over things that happen in that month. And we'll talk, obviously with the focus being on baseball stuff, but obviously lessons and things that I experienced this year that I learned from that I could provide to you guys in basically an effort to accomplish the overall goal of why I started what I started, which is allowing my experiences and my journey in this game, in this beautiful game, to better equip you guys for your journey in this game, and take for it with what you kind of choose. Not going to apply to everybody, but why not? 2021, 2022 almost gives us an opportunity, gives us an outlet to share all this stuff, and that's honestly the coolest part of everything that I do is having purpose in sharing this. So, all right, like I said, I am going to go over every single month, things that happen, the journey. Honestly, if you guys have been following me and following the vlogs and everything, that's basically going to entail everything. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put together a page on my website, which is going to be therobbyrowshow.com/2021-recap. And that page is not only going to have the podcast, this podcast itself, it's going to have the video podcast that I mentioned earlier with the 2 video angles. Hopefully that turns out good. It probably won't, but we grind. And it'll include all the context that I'm going to be referring to, or all the content that I'm going to be referring to throughout this entire episode. In each month, there's going to be things that I'm going to be talking about. For example, in April, I was on-ramping to be a starting pitcher in indie ball, and I'll include a bunch of content for that. And then in May, that's when I leave for the season, I'll include the vlog that road trips me out there. I'll include first start. I'll include literally all that content. So if you want to check all that out on literally one page, therobbyrowshow.com/2021-recap. I have a lot of content. I film everything, so buckle up. All right. Now, before we get into this episode, I'd like to thank a sponsor of this podcast, Advanced Therapy Performance. And if you're watching this video podcast, then you obviously can see that I'm wearing the Stop Running Pulls shirt that kind of fits me pretty dang good, if I'm being honest. And you can pick your shirt up or your number of different shirts up at buyatpgear.com. I'll include a link in the show notes as well. therobbyrowshow.com/2021-recap. Okay, let's dive in. All right, so let's start January of 2021. This is where it gets like right off the bat, it gets interesting. So January of 2021, I was in Puerto Rico from, last year I was in Puerto Rico from like middle of November to middle of January. It was a COVID shortened season, but January was extremely interesting because we had like this COVID outbreak in the league, it was right when we were entering playoffs. Literally, I think people got COVID the night of New Year's Eve. I could be wrong on the dates, and that's going to be a theme throughout this entire podcast is I'm trying to like get the exact dates. As I mentioned, I have a lot of content on my like hard drives and stuff, so it gives me a pretty good idea of like the dates and stuff, but it's all kind of somewhat irrelevant knowing the month. But January, we had the big COVID outbreak right when playoffs were starting in Puerto Rico. And that lasted for multiple weeks. I personally got COVID and probably was the only one out of the group from our team that got COVID that actually had like brutal symptoms. And historically speaking, that's usually what happens to me when I get sick. Like, I don't get sick a lot, but when I do, man, I freaking go down for the count. So I was crushed. Honestly, it took a while, not to get all into this COVID stuff, but like it took a while for me to get like my actual breathing back. I had to get taken out of a game, actually, my second game back from COVID. I had to take myself out because I was having difficulty breathing. It was not fun. And we won the first series in the playoffs. When we did come back, it took like, I think, again, I'm not really sure on the exact dates, but I think it took like 2 or 3 weeks to actually come back to resuming the season. And then when we did resume, we won that first round. And then in the championship series, faced off against Caguas, and they freaking swept us and then went to the Caribbean series. And that was not a great taste in our mouth because obviously, if things had gone differently and we, didn't have that whole outbreak, it would have been interesting to see what events unfolded. But during the outbreak, we had a bunch of people like go home, like guys that had jobs in the States, like affiliated guys went home. So when we did finally resume, we were kind of missing a lot of our key pieces. So that was tough. But obviously after the season ended, we're still in January, I went home, and this is kind of right around that time. I think I did a podcast on this actually, right around the time where like after winter ball, there's that little area of time where, you're like, all right, well, I got to get a job, right? I'm in talks with my like agent, and within a couple teams that had interest that saw me in winter ball. And just to recap winter ball last year, I actually have a whole podcast. I'll include winter ball podcast recap from 2020 and 2021. So let me put that on my paper so I don't forget if you want to check that out. But I put myself in a good position to hopefully, get a job. I really wanted a spring training invite, and that kind of leads us into February. So back to January, actually, because once I get home, there's no like real like, all right, I'm going to put the ball down type period, right? I'm at that point in my career where I kind of always have to stay ready for whatever opportunity presents itself. And to be completely honest, that's a personal choice because I love throwing so much. Like, I don't ever want to put the ball down because it brings me so much joy to actually throw, right? So even during my and we'll talk about this once we get to March, but even during my like downtime periods, like I'm still throwing like X amount of times a week, just super low intensity. So going into February now, that's kind of at that point where like I was really trying to get like a big league invite, big league spring training invite, just something that got like my foot in the door because super confident that I could have, turned some heads, impress. But at that point in time, I was 29 and, no big league experience. So it's a tough sign altogether. I live in reality, so I understand that. So February, all the jobs fell through. So again, at this point in time, I'm back home. I'm working in the lab. I'm taking on clients. Like, it was just the typical kind of quote unquote off-season lifestyle for me, like doing a lot of like desk work, doing a lot of training, prep work type stuff. And, just like I said, staying ready. it was an interesting dynamic at that time because, like short-term picture in February, I was like, all right, like I'm, sending videos out to these teams, in talks with my agent. Like there's I think a total of like maybe 3 or 4 teams that had pretty good interest that saw me in winter ball. And we were kind of just going back and forth, like sending videos. So when I was still throwing my bullpens at that time to send like Rapsodo reports, I was throwing them as if like we kind of make this joke a lot, reliever Rob, coming right off that winter ball season. So staying on February of 2021, that's when kind of like I started seeing the writing on the wall, like these jobs fell through. There was this kind of another kind of hold up, this dynamic that it was another COVID related issue where a lot of teams like didn't really have a good idea of like time frames for like minor league camp in relation to like big league camp. Because I think in February still, they only had a date for big league camp, and they didn't really have a date set up for like minor league camp. So a lot of this stuff was on like the back burner. So I was just kind of playing the waiting game. But I would say late February is when I kind of realized like all the jobs fell through. And I realized that after like I was doing everything that I could do in terms of like putting myself in a position to get a job, still coming off a good winter ball season and even doing like a lot of bullpens when I got home in January, February, doing things that I thought teams would want to see in terms of like Rapsodo reports, data metrics, velocity, spin, like all of these things. And obviously the video of showing like I could command the ball, 4 pitches for strike, like all these things. And I just realized like, okay, I can't really do anything more than this. So that's when I kind of realized, all right, jobs fell through. And then that brings us to March, in which I referred to earlier was kind of more so my R&R period. I didn't put the ball down. I was throwing I was still throwing probably 4 or 5 times a week, but it wasn't like, hey, I'm getting after it. I'm going to max long toss, max pull downs, velo reads, getting on the mound, blah, blah, blah. Like it was more of like, all right, I'll get in the lab, I'll do some drill progressions, I'll work on my body, types of movements that I want to optimize. Like March for me was, all right, what do I want to get better at from like a mechanical standpoint, whatever mental standpoint, and like let's really hone in on that. And saw some progress going into April. Like it's funny as I'm sitting here writing these, like March to me was like the one month out of all 12 months that I was like, what happened in March? Like I was looking at, because obviously, like I said, I have content labeled on my hard drive from like every single day that I shot content, and March was like a very limited amount of content. So I remember just saying like, okay, like writing's on the wall, this stuff's not happening. So kind of give my body, my arm, my mind a nice little R&R period with incorporating like, movement progressions. Obviously the training aspect was still good, so on and so forth. Bringing us to April. So now April was an interesting month because I've said this multiple times on my podcast where I talk about like the difference between me going to an affiliated team and pitching out of the bullpen, because I've talked about so many times. I realize I identify like I'm better out of the bullpen, but going to indie ball, for me, it's more advantageous to be a starter, to know when I'm going to pitch, to know, workload, to have a schedule of when things throughout the week are going to occur. I think it just makes things a lot more simple. So for me in April, I was on-ramping to basically be a starter after having been the reliever, coming basically out of 2020 as well, because I went to Lexington to be a starter, but I think 2 starts in, I was turned into a reliever. So I was basically a reliever from that time frame through the winter ball prep of 2020, through winter ball, and then now into April of 2021. So on-ramping to build up to the starter, and that was fun for me. And again, another dynamic of like my indie ball prep work in 2021 was that I was doing it all alone. Like my editor now at the time, he wasn't my editor, but Harmless Content was away at college playing ball. So, and Pops was still coming off a quote unquote injury, in which one of my last bullpens before I left for the 2020 winter ball season, I threw a slider and got him in the shin, and that was tough. But so he was still coming off that, so he didn't want to throw. We mixed in a few sessions with Pops in April, but basically my entire April prep work for indie ball starting was done alone, and I'll include content from that in the show notes of therobbyrowshow.com/2021 recap. But it was basically all done alone. I would get my Bonet, little ball bag carrier, shout out Bonet. I don't know if my discount code for them still works, but it's still on my website, so I'll include the link to all my discounts. And I would go up to the park, got a schedule going. I would usually go around like noon, so basically all the people that were there were just people having their dog poop in the outfield. So it's nice and calm, cool, collected. So my on-ramp from April to be a starter was just obviously increasing the volume of throws and everything, and then increasing the the training volume as well, like getting into better shape for longevity. I even wrote on my paper, #starter Rob. All right. And then that takes us into May. So May, another kind of interesting month, because at that point, even when May first hit, I didn't have a job, right? I was still kind of weighing options. There was indie ball teams reaching out. What do you want to do? Blah, blah, blah. And I still didn't have a job. I literally didn't have a job until 4 days before I left, which was pretty cool. So prep work was continuing. And obviously, at that time, I basically felt good enough to say, okay, I can start, and first outing, I can give you 5. I was pretty confident in that. So I ended up agreeing to a contract with Lake Erie Crushers in the Frontier League. A big thing, I think I talked about this on a podcast too. The big thing for me is I didn't want to go to the Atlantic League. I felt like they were doing too many things that were test dummy stuff, moving the mound back, doing the TrackMan umpire, and I just didn't want to be involved in that. The hard part for me, honestly, with all of those teams weighing those decisions, was on one hand you had the Atlantic League. They were doing all these testing, experiment things, which, like I said, I didn't want to be a part of. But at the same time, the Frontier League just merged with the Can-Am League. The COVID thing was going to take away a lot of Canada teams. And the thing with going to Lake Erie specifically was that it was an all-turf mound. And I've been pretty vocal in the past. I don't really like all-turf mounds. It takes a while to get adjusted to. And I've realized throughout my years, it affects my velocity 2 to 3 miles an hour, and kind of a small sample size, and obviously hard to tell because I've only been a starter on turf mounds, and historically as a starter I don't throw mid 90s, but I have noticed just from the dynamic of being on a turf mound and the lead leg block and all these kind of different components that are involved within turf mound and pitching mechanics, is there is going to be a little leakage. Kind of seen that commonality across the board. So that was something that was going to kind of weigh into my decision, but at the end of the day, obviously didn't weigh in all too much, as I agreed to go to Lake Erie. I was kind of drawn to there out of all the places, that I got a call from, and there was multiple opportunities that presented itself, which was cool. I was drawn there because I was born in Ohio and I've never played in Ohio. That was something. And my mom's favorite color is purple, and I've never played for a purple team. And I thought wearing purple stirrups would be freaking swag. The funny thing is I'm not even really joking with that. That was something that did come up. And I was like, all right, let's do it. Lake Erie. All right, let's do it. Boom. And then left. And like I said, I literally left as soon as I made that decision. I had 24 hours and I had to leave because they were already there when I agreed to terms. So I have this written down in terms of the dates. I left for Lake Erie either May 7th or May 8th. I want to say it was May 8th. I have a whole entire road trip vlog from the Indie Ball vlog series I'll include. Another couple key dates from May. Arrived in Lake Erie May 14th. So I was booking it. That road trip was fun. Solo road trip. Gosh, I love those. 5/23, I did my first ever mic'd up start day. although it wasn't like great content because the mic I had to put in my back pocket and the camera was behind home plate, but it like didn't pick up a whole lot, but it was still kind of dope to be able to do that, which I'm going to do a lot more this next year. So be ready for that. So 523 is the mic'd up inner squad. I forget which vlog episode that was, but it was definitely a vlog episode. I also will include the whole entire mic'd up inner squad day. The video from that in the recap on my website. 529 was my first start of the year, which went really well. I'll include vlog episodes, and I even have an outing breakdown I did on that. I think I went 6 innings, 1 run, ended up getting the win. I say win because that wind on that opening day, or my opening day start, what am I trying to say? The wind on my first start of the year was absolutely absurd, and I had never experienced anything like that before. So windy, wind blowing in, and it was cold wind, and it was like, whoa. But even before that day, though, I was supposed to start on 528, and it got rained out. So go figure, right? And I was supposed to pitch against my old team, Southern Illinois Miners. So my first start ended up being 529, went good. And then coming into June was like when a lot of different dynamics changed. So 615, so I had a few starts before this that went pretty well. 615, that was my last start with Lake Erie. I had this quote-unquote injury. I talk about it in a vlog episode. I'll include all of that. So if you're wondering, want more details, there's a whole vlog episode that explains it. So I had the injury versus my old team, Southern Illinois, and I was officially like placed on the, what is it, IL now? I think retroactive to 615. And just really frustrating because of something that came up with my elbow. Ever since I had like bone spur surgery, I lost a lot of range of motion, and then it was just something that came up that like locked my elbow, and we got a cortisone shot, and then I was fine, but then I needed an on-ramp a lot. So we took 2 weeks, got the cortisone, and it was a kind of a frustrating process. I'm not going to go into it, but there's a whole vlog episode on it. I'll include it. And then 629 was my first day back throwing. But throughout that time period, so like even June, and as I mentioned, going into, this entire like building up piece to it, right? Because I was a starter, right? So it's not like I can just throw a couple pens and be ready to throw 1 or 2 innings in a game. Like I needed to come back, be able to throw 5, 6, 7 innings. And that's kind of how they explained it to me. So that's why the on-ramping period of this took a while. So June, 2 weeks off of throwing, 629 first throw day, and then throughout this June time frame into July, there was a lot of a really cool and like glass half full, I guess, type things, because as a indie baller, when you get put on like the DL or IL or whatever it is, you're rehabbing, like you don't go on road trips, you don't get the meal money. So you stay back, and the cool thing with Lake Erie, and another piece that made me want to really go to Lake Erie, was they had a state-of-the-art facility right next to the ball field called T3 Performance. Built some really good relationships there, and loved it. And like that was a huge piece that I loved about playing in Avon, Ohio, was T3, and being able to go there, rehab, train, and even work with guys. Like that was another cool opportunity that I had during my rehab stint there that I can be grateful for in terms of like looking at all the good that came out of that rehab experience during that time. Was I got to build some really good relationships with guys, and there was a couple of other teammates that went on the IL at a similar time frame than I did, and I got to train those guys, got to advance my knowledge in human movement, mobility, strength, condition, like all these things. So that I was grateful for. And then I believe on July 16th was when I was released. It was out of the blue. I was actually really close to being back, but maybe a couple more weeks, because like I said, I had to build up 5, 6 innings. I was released because of reasons that I mentioned on a vlog episode, but to give you context, like indie ball, there's a very limited budget, salary, for each player, and they had a lot of guys on the DL at the time, as I mentioned. So they couldn't really sign guys with me taking up, what I was within the salary. So they were just like, hey, we're going to let you go. And I was like, all right, that was really hard. Honestly, that I built a lot of really good relationships there. I really loved, honestly, the whole entire setup. Like, I've talked about this a lot, man. The setup that I had in Lake Erie, Avon, Ohio, was one of the best setups I've ever had. And that goes into like when I was, in affiliated ball, big leagues, like it's crazy. And I give a lot of credit to the Lake Erie Crushers as a team, the people, front office, everyone involved, like built a lot of really good lifelong relationships there. The people were great. I got treated so good. So it was tough, like, getting that call to say, hey, we got to let you go. So I was released July 16th, and then on July 20th, I signed after a period of, 3 days. I think I took 1 day and I was like, I'm disconnecting from the world, like whatever, I'll be on my own. And then 3 days of like, all right, all these teams were calling, do you want to play, blah, 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 and then weighed those options. And then on July 20th, signed with New York, left, and then got there, and I was still technically like on the DL, like I was still rehabbing when I signed. So they gave me, 10 days, I believe, because on August 1st, like moving into the month of August now, that's when I made my debut. August 1st made my debut, not just as a person in Canada, but as a starting pitcher on the New York Boulders. Wow, that's pretty cool. So then throughout that whole entire month, like I said, August 1st was I made my debut, and then I was a starting pitcher, like back on that routine. My my first start with them went really well. I have an outing breakdown that you can check out. It'll be all on the page, all the context, as I mentioned before. First time in Canada. It wasn't that great, man. I got my locker stolen. Well, you don't get your locker stolen, but I got things out of my locker stolen, like all my mule money cash and all that stuff. So yeah, bad taste in my mouth. But I don't want to say not much happened in August, because obviously a lot did. I can include a lot of vlogs on how all that stuff kind of unfolded. But I was just back on the starting pitching routine. And there was some struggles, there was failures, there was successes, but there was a lot that I could take away from it. On-field performance-wise. Like, you'll see when I include those outing breakdown videos, you'll see a lot of takeaways from those August outings. And it was a constant, like, learning process. So, and then moving into September, okay, so the last month of the season, last start of the season, this is kind of a cool little time frame here of like a couple weeks, but my last start of the season, arguably my best start, was on 9/11. We got to wear the New York firefighter hats for remembering 9/11, obviously. That was a cool moment. And then with 2 games still remaining in the season, I think the last game was on 9/13. I had to leave after my last start. It was a night game on 9/11. I had to leave and make my way back to California because my best friend was getting married and I was the best man in the wedding. And obviously having my car and my entire company like with me, I needed to go. So there's a vlog episode on that, which is honestly still not released. I have to find another editor to edit that episode up, which will probably be my longest ever podcast episode, because it starts like 2 days before my last start, and it goes all the way until like the time I get to my best friend's house. It's crazy. But I had to leave that night, so I left. We were on the road, New Jersey Jackals, and I had to leave New Jersey that night because I wanted to give myself enough time. So I left, drove throughout the night, actually stopped and stayed at a friend's house in Avon, Ohio, that I, again, going back to those connections and relationships that I built during my time there, and then left in the morning, and then made it all the way, I think, I made really good timing. I actually got there like 2 days before the actual wedding. I had never been to a wedding before, let alone never been in a wedding before. So that was an entire experience, like aside from like baseball, but just like real life experience. That was something pretty dang cool. Got to give a best man speech, killed it. I'll even include, like, if you guys want to see it, I'll include some pictures from the wedding. I was in a tux, had a fanny pack, it's freaking swag. Dance floor, dominated. I burned more calories that day, that wedding day, than I did any day on during the season. Is that saying something? Yikes. So the wedding itself was 9/17. I drove home the next day, 9/18, and then on 9/20, I started the series of winter ball prep work with my boy, Harmless Content, Chris Harms, who was back now from college. And so that period of time for winter ball prep, like we sat down and we were like, all right, we're going to do this series of winter ball prep. We have like, I forget, it was like 35 days or whatever it was until the time in which I left for Puerto Rico. And we got after it, man. I have so much content from our time together. But then on moving into October, that's when winter ball prep took the next step in its evolution and got into 10-1. We started Live ABs, and that Live ABs series was one of the funnest projects that I've done in my entire existence, and is going to be one of the most fun I've had creating content as I get home from winter ball and prep for another season. Kind of do the same thing as I did last year, right? And then that's when we developed Harmless Content for my boy. We created a brand, so to speak. So that was an exciting moment in time for everyone involved. You can check him out on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Harmless Content. He's killing it. So I'm really, I mean, he's my editor, he's my brand manager. So obviously he's killing it. So, and then October, the whole month of October was just prep. We got a really good routine, and it's cool, like having someone there with you in training, right? So like he would come over. I got the training lab in the backyard, come over in the mornings, man. My routine was just locked in. It was so good. And if you guys know me, I'm such a routinist. Like there's nothing more that I find joy in than having a good routine. And my like off season, my prep work for seasons, like the routine of waking up, going out, getting a walk in, earthing, having all these spots in my hometown to know where to go to do like what I need to do, and then coming back, having my cold tank, having my sauna, having my gym, my lab, and all of these kind of things that are there for me to have access to, and just, man, feeling good every single day. And obviously, you know, being close to my parents, my family, that's another dynamic that makes that time really enjoyable. And it goes fast. Obviously, time itself goes fast, right? So going into November, there were some complications like with my passport and my license, like they expired at the same time. So I actually had to push my departure date to winter ball in Puerto Rico back a little bit, which was a blessing in disguise, because I got to celebrate my mom's birthday on November 1st. And then I left for Puerto Rico on November 3rd, got there. I think like that travel out here, it's a vlog. So we'll include that as well. It's an absolute grind coming from California. Oh, it's like 2 4-hour flights. Brutal. Staying in November, my first outing was 11/11. Since I got here late, they actually put me on the inactive list. So I wasn't active for like the first 3 games of the season. But then, as I mentioned, my first outing was 11/11. Did not go good. I came in, bases loaded. I'm actually going to start posting more of my outings on YouTube like I did last season in winter ball. So you might even see those on the page as well. And then my first save on 11/13, I led the league in saves throughout the month of November after even starting the season on the inactive list. So that was a pretty cool accomplishment. Going into December, some more note on accomplishments. Made the All-Star game. Have a ton of sweet, dope content from the All-Star game. It's obviously going to be a vlog as well. So 12/12 was that All-Star game. Didn't get the frickin' pitch because of the rain. I was pitching the 9th, and it started torrential downpouring. And you're going to see a theme throughout my journey in my life if you stay attached, that I am the Rain Man. And a lot of freaking games get canceled because of that. And then 12/15 was my birthday, Dirty 30, as so they call it. That is also the same day we had another partial COVID outbreak. I said it on the vlog. It was kind of, obviously birthdays aren't really exciting after 21. So this was like my most, not depressing, but like not disappointing either, because I didn't really have any high expectations, but it was just like dull. Like out of all the birthdays in my life, this one was just like, whoa, because like I said, we had a mini COVID outbreak. We were supposed to play a game. So that would have been cool, pitching on my birthday. I've never pitched on my birthday. We played a game last year during Puerto Rico on my birthday, but I didn't pitch in it. There's another vlog episode, I think, vlog episode 8 from last year's vlog on my birthday. But this year's birthday was, it's like they had the COVID outbreak, didn't do anything. Well, we couldn't leave our rooms or something like that. And it was, oh man, I'd even eat dinner on my birthday. Crazy. And then that whole thing lasted a week, which, staying on the topic of COVID outbreak, was probably the coolest opportunity that presented itself after devastating, COVID stuff happening, was on 12/22. I got to freaking DH. We had a lot of players still out from testing positive on a certain day, and you need X amount of days until you can come back. So on 12/22, my dream came true. That rhymed. And I have a podcast on that I will include as well, but it's all the content from that day. And what is that episode link? Because I literally just recorded this. So I want to just say it is therobbyrowshow.com/my-dream. So that link, which again, I'll include in the show notes, but that's me talking about the entire day, how it came to be, so on and so forth, which I'm not joking when I say that was one of the best days of being a baseball player. Like, it brought me back so many times to like playing travel ball, hitting, BGs, breakfast, hotel breakfast, dugout talk, talking with hitters. What does this guy got? How'd he pitch you? And I was like, man, I felt like a ball player, like a real ball player, not a secluded animal in the bullpen. That was cool. 12/25, obviously Christmas. Had a good Christmas Eve. I think I went to bed at 8 p.m. on Christmas Day. That's dope. 12/26, another goal of mine got accomplished. So I was sitting here writing all these things down on this paper about my 2021 recap, and I'm like, man, I didn't really have a great year. Like, a lot of bad things happen, this and that. But now I'm like sitting here thinking about, man, I'm so grateful for this. Like, this is so, like, I know I say this just as like somewhat of just a cliche phrase, but I'm literally living my dream, man. This is when people ask me like, hey, why don't you just give up, dude? You're never going to make it. What do you mean? Why would I freaking give up? Are you kidding me? Are you listening to everything I'm saying? Everything I get to do? I'm not bragging one bit, but like, this is amazing. And it gets better. The last thing I got for you guys in December, 12/26, we had a doubleheader at Santurce. So all I knew going into that day was that I was starting, because we didn't have any starters. And obviously I started throughout the course of indie ball last year, so I was used to it. So the first game of the doubleheader, I started. During that first game, Brian Ray, if you guys want to send some prayers up to him, man, he got hit in the eye, and it was hard. It was hard to watch, because as somebody that has been hit in the face by a 100-mile-an-hour exit velo comebacker, it's not fun. And for him getting hit in the eye, fracturing his orbital bone, like I said, prayers up for him. But with him out, we had no other extra like position players, right? So second game of that doubleheader, I got to DH. So my goal, this is literally my upbringing, right, in high school and travel ball and stuff. First game of a doubleheader, starting pitcher. Now, obviously, back in the day, it was like you started and you just went the whole game. For me, in that doubleheader, first game, I was a starter, but still a reliever, like an opener. I just went 2 innings, went well. Second game, DH. Now, second game, DH did not go good. It was really, really frustrating. Timing super jacked up. After having my first professional career hit on 12:22. Had a double and an RBI. Went 1 for 3 with a walk. So that was freaking cool. Was riding this high horse, high expectations now going into this doubleheader. And I went freaking 0 for 4 with a punch. And I broke a record, actually. I didn't break a record. I set a record that will probably never be broken in professional baseball. Most hits or most balls put in play to the pitcher under an exit velo of 50. My first 3 at-bats, literally the same thing. First 2 at-bats were righty. Third at-bat was lefty. Same result. Freaking squibbler, whatever, how do you ever pronounce that, back to the pitcher. When a 1-3, 1-3, 1 unassisted. I still haven't gotten over that. But I got the video yesterday. I finally was able to access the video yesterday. I sent it to Pops, and I was like, "Hey, correct my swing." He says I got to stand off the dish a little bit more because I got to get longer, and I'm getting beat on the inner third, and I'm not giving my barrel enough time to get to the ball. So if I do get another opportunity to hit, you better believe we're going to do some damage. You got that? Okay. So, and now it being 12/31/2021, we're done. That was my 2021 recap. Obviously, there's probably more stuff that would come up as I end this, but obviously not what I had written down. That was my life. That was my journey in 2021. Cool things happen, bad things happen. We learn, we move on, and what people may perceive sometimes as failure, I perceive as an opportunity to learn and grow. I'm in this stage in this season of my life in which God is showing me so much, and at certain points when I was younger, there were times, there was experiences that I had gone through that I would try to honestly just forget and be like, all right, let's move on. Let's not dwell on that. Let's not live in the past, close it. And now I think the message, or at least, the big kind of point that I think God is showing me is everything you go through is molding you. And it's your choice to allow experience and circumstances to mold you into a better version of yourself or a worse version of yourself. And it's up to you to decide. And it's a choice. Right? Obviously, sometimes there's things beyond our control from circumstances and experiences that suck, but we have the power within us to take all of it right in the chin and use it as fuel, motivation, whatever you want to kind of use there, to grow. And growth is so precious. Growth is so valuable. And everyone is going to have their different kind of walks through life. But I promise you, everyone's going to have certain experiences that you hear the phrase make or break, which I don't really like that phrase, but it's molds you better or worse. So I am extremely blessed. I'm extremely grateful to have gone through my entire 2021 with, somewhat good health. I'm so grateful for all of the relationships that were developed throughout this year. So grateful for, the experiences that I got, the journey, the places that I got to go and visit, all of those things, man. It was a fun year. There was obviously a lot of, subjectively bad things. There was a lot of subjectively good things. And there was just things in general. And I am so excited to tackle 2022 in a even better equipped state of mind than I was in 2021. Now that I'm 30 now, so that's crazy. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for supporting the journey. Thank you guys for being there. It truly means a lot that's another thing that I'm extremely blessed for, super grateful for, are you guys, the constant positive affirmations throughout this journey. Obviously, I am appreciative of those that are continuously saying, no, I can't, that, continuously fuel the fire that doesn't quite need to be fueled, but they do it anyway. So I appreciate you guys as well. To everyone involved, to everyone who had a role within my 2021 journey, thank you. Good or bad, thank you. I am who I am today due to all those experiences and circumstances that have come my way. And the people make it truly beautiful. So thank you guys. All right, I'm out. We have today off. Tomorrow, New Year's Day, we got to practice. And then January 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, we're grinding. And then we start playoffs. So you guys can watch, I think, nationally televised stuff now going into playoffs is Fox Sports 2. We signed a deal with WAPA. And a lot of our games are now going to be nationally televised on Fox Sports 2, which can be found on, TV, cable, whatever, or your app, because everything is like streamed now. So that's cool. All right, guys, love you. God bless. Until next pod. That was my 2021 recap. And we're still here. So that's positive. All right. See you guys.